Assalamu alaikum. His Excellency Mr. Muhammad, Dr. Archie Khan, guests and my dear students. I am a student of politics, and therefore whenever I try to look at any issue, my perspective is that to question the very basis of the popular assumptions about that issue. Presently, the popular assumption is that it's a state of euphoria, people are very happy. Palestine has been recognized as a non-member state, the observer state in the United Nations, and things appear to be very rosy. To my mind, it's not so simple. I view it as a subtext of the larger political game which is going on in the world. Things which happen in global politics are not governed by our emotions, aspirations, and our hopes. They are governed by power politics. You are all aware that the main player in the global politics today is the United States of America. But to my mind, in this context, the main player is Israel. America is player number 2. And it is these two players who are pulling the strings of this game. I would just try to outline the contours of this game to make my students have some different perspective on this issue. You might have seen in the news a few months back, an attack on Iran was almost imminent. Israel was constantly giving signals, direct and indirect, that Iran is going to be the target. And one fine morning you find that the attack is on Palestine. It is not incidental. Actually, the basic purpose in this whole game is to detach Iran, to isolate Iran. The main target of this game is Iran. What was there in the Middle East for the last few years? Hamas, Syria, Hezbollah, Iran. These were the 4 powerful forces which were very much close to each other and which were a cause of great concern to Israel and then to its client state, America. I am saying America is the client state, not Israel, because American foreign policy in West Asia is guided by Israel. Now the purpose was twofold. One, as I mentioned, to isolate Iran. Second, to stop Hamas from launching missiles into Israeli territory. Because that was getting a cause of concern, because in the recent conflict you saw that the Iron Dome system, which was supposed to be protecting the Israeli territory from missiles, was not that effective. Of course, any system which tries to act as a filter to missiles coming from any direction is bound to fail. It's too good to be true. And that's what was shown in the conflict. So what are these two main players doing? There has been a lot of change in the Middle Eastern politics in the recent past, in the last year and a half. New governments have come in and they have evoked a lot of hope in the people in the Middle East as well as elsewhere. Some people are happy that Islamic governments are coming to power in many Middle Eastern countries, like Egypt, like Tunisia, like earlier to some extent in Turkey. But America and Israel, they are big powers, and they are big powers not for nothing. They know how to adjust to changing realities of global politics. Today, America has very conveniently managed to continue the same patron-client relationship which it had been having with the Middle Eastern countries since the Second World War. That is, America is the patron and all the Middle Eastern so-called Muslim states, they are the clients. Now when these changes happened, people thought that monarchies are going from these countries, military dictatorships are going, and now they are, the Muslim Brotherhood is coming to power. Something like the Muslim Brotherhood came to power in in Turkey in 2003, Erdogan. Erdogan's AKP has some, elements of the kind of Muslim Brotherhood fraternity which is emerging in the Middle East, like it emerged in Tunisia, like it emerged in America. Like it emerged in Egypt. What is good about these governments for America and Israel? They are so-called Islamic democracies. People are happy and satisfied. They are right-wing, they are West-oriented, they are business-friendly, and they are almost the equivalent of the kind of Christian democratic parties which are there in the European countries. So they are very convenient to them. And therefore, there is a school of thought in America today which is arguing, and there was a book earlier also, but about good Muslims and bad Muslims. Muslims who are convenient to us, they are good Muslims. So in Egypt, you see, Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood are good Muslims. The Salafists are bad Muslims. So if you are able to accommodate the broad objectives of Israel and America in the Middle East, you are a good Muslim. You shouldn't oppose them with violence. And people who oppose them or want to oppose them with violence, they are the axis of evil. The axis of evil is this: Hamas, Syria, Hezbollah, Iran. In this, the most powerful is Iran, so isolate Iran. And that has been done to a great extent. And that's what you saw, how Egypt and Qatar played a very prominent role in the resolution of this conflict. They were put in. It's not that Morsi was a very nice man and he had all the sympathy for the Palestinians in his heart, and he came forward, and some people have been arguing that it was the victory of Egypt and now it's going to play a very major role in the Middle East and it's emerging now. It's not emerging, it is being made to emerge. Morsi is just a pawn on the chessboard of global power politics. He is being made to act so fast. He is there in it. The Emir of Qatar, who knew about the Emir of Qatar? What is Qatar? Very prominent player. So what happens? The first person to visit there is the Prime Minister of Egypt, then the Foreign Minister of Qatar, then comes Bahrain, Tunisia, all the GCC countries. They are the prominent players, means you are the players, these people are out. So Iran should not be there. GCC sponsored government comes to power in Syria eventually. They hope it's going to come in. So what happens? Iran's main supporter Syria is gone. Hezbollah cornered. And with the Sunni Maronite government in Lebanon, Hezbollah even more so cornered. So Hezbollah, the truth getting extracted, Iran isolated, every other power is friendly to us. So this axis which is emerging in the Middle East, the countries whom some people might think that they are the main saviors of the Palestinian cause, actually they are a convenient tool in the present game of politics where the main players are America, Israel, or Israel, then America, and now the GCC has come in under the leadership of Saudi Arabia. And what they are trying to also do, very, very dangerous game, again play the game of this Shia Sunni in the Middle East. So the king of Jordan, recently talked about what they said. I've written down the exact words, Shia crescent in West Asia. A Shia crescent is emerging, we have to finish it. How dangerous words, So what they are trying to say, Shia crescent has to be crushed, means Syria and Iran and Hezbollah, all of them, they have to be crushed. And now the other crescent, that the GCC crescent has to come in, and we are all there in it. And it is very convenient to America. America has no problems with them. And do you think that Morsi came to power just like that? Morsi also was a very aggressive person, very violent in his thoughts and ideas. But eventually when he was to come to power, a deal was brokered by America between Morsi and the army. When he agreed to those conditions, only then the army agreed that he should be in power. And even now when he says something too friendly to rather too friendly for the Palestinians, immediately the warning is issued from the Washington that you are crossing your limits. It's too much. Don't do this. Don't cross the line. So you have to be sympathetic, but mind your words. So this is the kind of situation which is emerging in the Middle East, and to my mind it is a very dangerous thing, because they are trying to perpetuate that patron-client relationship in a new way. But the dangerous point now is that this is a part of the game of domination by consent. Earlier, the common people in the Middle East and elsewhere, they assumed that the domination was by force. America is trying to dominate in the Middle East by force. These are monarchies, they are clients of America, and they are bad people, and that's why, the Muslims are suffering because of their monarchs, their kings. They are licking the boots of America. Today there are democratic governments. But these so-called democratic governments, that is the biggest, farce of democracy. These so-called democratic governments, if they serve the cause of America, nothing more convenient than that, and that too with Islamic color. So you all assume to think that AKP, the Erdogan's party in Turkey, is an Islamic democracy. The democracy in Tunisia is an Islamic democracy. The democracy in Egypt is an Islamic democracy. And eventually they are all going to serve the interest, the larger game plan of America and Israel. Now, where does Palestine figure in this game? Actually, Palestine, to my mind, the game is to finish the issue of Palestine forever. The recent announcements, you might have heard of more settlements, and to throttle the biggest slum in the world, that is Gaza, is, to my mind, slowly and gradually a move to eventually finish the very dispute in their favor, to annex it totally. One day they would annex it totally, and then the issue would be finished. There's no Palestine and there's no issue. The issue is finished, and therefore, to my mind, America and Israel are trying to divert the attention of the international community, divert the attention of the people who are fighting for the cause of Palestinians by creating these kinds of moves, which apparently appear to be very favorable, and on the other hand, continuing with their game of occupation, which is going on very brazenly and very fast. And if it goes on with the same pace as some commentators say in Israel, by 2030 or 2025, the whole area would be annexed, and then the issue would be finished. And the kind of support Israel gets from America, because America has no option but to do what Israel wants because of obvious reasons, I don't see there is much hope in the two-state solution, which is much touted kind of thing, which has become a favorite talking point of people who are talking on Middle East, that let us have a two-state solution. One state is simply not going to exist. So where would the two-state solution come from? And that is what the logic of power politics rather dictates. I recently met a few Israelis, and when I was talking to them, they said that they were talking so simply, it's a matter of our survival, this is a security issue. We can't allow these people to exist. They are a threat to us. Simply as your government will say that X and Y are terrorists, we have to kill them, we have no option. So it is that kind of fate accomplished, with which they present the issue. So that is the kind of mindset and the kind of support which they are getting from America, which is obviously the most powerful country. You can't help it. And America would not change, You see how Israel is controlling America. In the previous election, Netanyahu openly supported Obama's opponent. He was openly against Obama. He criticized Obama. He even dared Obama to oppose him. And eventually what happened? Obama supported him in every possible way. In the present crisis, not a word of criticism, not even a word to ask Israel to exercise restraint, Totally, blatantly favoring all the kinds of, genocidal actions and aggressive tendencies of Israel. Total support. What is the reason? It is again not emotionalism. It is again the way American democracy functions. I don't think everybody here would be aware of this, but just a word on this. American democracy is a democracy run by corporations. America is a corporate democracy, where whosoever has the money calls the shots. If you have the money, you can get whatever you want to do in America. These very democratic leaders, who are the most democratic leaders in the world, they would do what you want, whether right or wrong. That corporate money is channelized through big lobbies in America, big think tanks in America. And these lobbies actually manage politicians who run the country. The biggest and the most influential lobby in America is AIPAC. That is the Jewish lobby. They are the richest organization. In every election, they would give $6 billion to candidate A and $5 billion to candidate B. So whosoever wins, it is their victory. And whatever policy is decided on Israel, it is first sent to the AIPAC for vetting. Each and every word is read and vetted, and only when they approve, that is what the American president would say. That is the kind of control. A few years back, the chairman of the AIPAC boasted that I can get the signatures of 87 senators on a paper napkin. Means we are so powerful that whatever we write on a paper napkin, 87 senators are there to sign it, means it's law. 87 is too big a number, you just need 51. So this is the power they are exercising. Until the time they exercise this power, America actually cannot do anything against Israel. Even if Obama wants, even if any president of America wants, he cannot do it. And you see Obama, he is in his second term. He can't even contest the third term. But see the fear of Israel. That a person so safely ensconced in the most powerful position in the world can't even dare to call a spade a spade. This is the kind of influence. If he were in his first term, you would say he has to fight elections. And that was shown earlier in the second term of Clinton, if you remember. When Clinton was going to contest the second time, he was getting 92% approval ratings. He was the most popular president in American history at that time. But he just gave a single statement that settlements in the occupied territory should be stopped. He didn't say too much. Just one sentence, what is undoing. Immediately all the powerful lobbies in America turned against him, and within a few months' time that approval rating from 92 came to 40, and eventually he lost the elections. That was the first election in America where even Hollywood stars, sports personalities, all of them came in the open to support the candidature of a candidate, George Bush. Nobody thought who the candidate is, George Bush or whosoever it is. George Bush won by default because the issue was to defeat this man who dared to say something on Israel. So that was a lesson to all future politicians in America. If you have to stay in power here, don't go against us. And same is true of, scholarship. Same is true of academics. Any scholar who dares say anything against Israel is delegitimized. That is the new game of power. That you don't let a voice against you come from anywhere. Even informed people, academics can't say anything against you. You remember Edward Said, such a great Orientalist and scholar. He was a very strong proponent of the rights of Palestinians. What happened, even in the biggest university, the best universities in the world, Cambridge, he could not enter because they said he is not the right person. Nobody is questioning his scholarship, but people are saying he is not the right man. He is supporting the terrorists. A very prominent scholar in my field, I am from political science, John Mearsheimer, one of the most prominent realist scholars in the world, aged 65, 70. All his life, he was a great scholar. But 2-3 years back, he wrote an article saying that American foreign policy is Israeli foreign policy. And what happened? Immediately the opposition started, they delegitimized him to the extent saying he's an insane person, He's not in his minds. He doesn't know what he's saying, His lectures were boycotted. He was, followed everywhere. They were after his job, An established scholar, American, white American, this is what is happening to him. If he dares say anything against whatever Israel is doing, right or wrong. So this is the kind of support which they are getting. And if you get that kind of a support, you become very brazen in the use of your power. And that is what Israel is doing. The whole world is saying, Britain is saying, I don't think they are very sincere about that, but Britain is just saying that we'll withdraw our ambassador. France is saying we'll withdraw our ambassador. But I think it's all part of the larger game. Keep on doing these things, make these noises. The stronger noises would be made by the Middle Eastern countries, which are pliant states like Egypt, Tunisia, Qatar, all of these people. Don't let Iran come in the game. the other noises will be made by these European countries because it's something so grossly wrong, so you have to say something. America will keep silent, Israel will go on doing what it is doing, and eventually one day that whole issue would be finished. There would be no Palestine and there would be nobody to fight for it because that issue would already be over. So howsoever right the cause is not there anymore. The way Golan Heights were annexed, one day this would also be annexed. That is what I see. I'm not saying that it's all doomed, but I'm just trying to analyze it as a student of politics, how power works, because there is no sympathy when power moves. It's not a game of sympathy. It's not a game where I have sympathy for you. I have just to use my power and you are just a block in the road, so I have to just move on. That's what America and others are doing. And then the larger game which I started with, the game to finish Iran. Because Iran is one dissenting voice. So now everything is ready, and don't be surprised if very shortly more stronger sanctions are applied on Iran. You mind? I don't think you are. I think rather you must be aware that the kind of sanctions which are applied on Iran today, they are unprecedented in recent human history. No other country has been subjected to these kind of sanctions, and for what? For doing nothing, for doing everything which is legitimate according to international law, for just exercising its legitimate right under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which it is a signatory to. But still, all pressure is being exerted and all plans are being made to attack Iran. Some scholars in Israel even say that this was just the trailer of the film which is to follow, that is the attack on Iran. It's very much possible because that is the only dissenting voice in the Middle East. Other countries have all acceded to the American rather broader game plan. However, just to end, there are some positive signs also. People in Israel are getting fed up with this conflict to a great extent. 100 prominent scholars and intellectuals in Israel recently signed a petition saying that we should end this whole issue and we should give a state to Palestinians. That is the kind of civil society movement which is gathering strength in Israel, and a lot of Israeli Jews today are coming around to this point of view that if we have to survive in this world safely and securely, we have to give something to the Palestinians. So there is one point of hope, because the hope can only come from the powerful players who are actually determining the course of the game. Whatever you might think, that is immaterial in this game of power. And the other important thing, in America also, a lot of prominent people, of course I gave you the example of Mearsheimer, other establishment people have started questioning this American support to Israel, which is getting too much for them. Because they are saying, like recently General David Petraeus, who was the head of the CIA, who resigned recently, said that American policy in Middle East is getting rather too bad because we are supporting Israel and everything, and that is annoying the Muslim population in the world. So Americans are also realizing that they are getting a very bad public opinion in the world. Lots of people are getting angry with them. In a democracy like America, even if you are less and united, you are very powerful. Although it is a game of numbers. But other people have their opinions, but they are disunited. The Jewish lobby in America, although it's just 2%, they are so very united. And they are moving to their goal with such tenacity, with such planning that you can't even imagine it. Suppose there is a talk of a scholar in a university, in some obscure university in America, about Palestine, and they know that that scholar is sympathetic to the cause of Palestine, and there are 20 Jews in that city, maybe 10. Instructions will come from AIPAC to all of these 10 people that even if you have to take leave, go to that lecture, stand outside with placards, say that this is not a good lecture, go inside, heckle the person, ask inconvenient questions, he creates some problem for the person. Don't let it happen like this. Then write letters to the university's rector, then write letters to the department people, why you are appointing this person as assistant lecturer. He is a useless person, he doesn't have any knowledge about things. Even if you know the things, be on the back foot. Don't come against us. So our cause will go, as it is going forward. These were some of my thoughts. They were not very organized, but I thought that I should give you this context, Maybe some people won't agree, but that's what I think, and that's how the situation in the Middle East can be contextualized against the backdrop of power politics. Thank you.